Guten Tag, Dankeschön. I just wanted to make sure everybody was available and could respond. So what I want to talk about today is I want to talk about employee engagement. And why is that important? It's important because in order to deliver the initiatives and the innovation and the digital excellence we need, we're going to need our teams to be engaged. We need them to buy in order to do that work and deliver it for us. But that presents us with a challenge because if you look at the research, according to Gallup, between 70 and 85% of employees are disengaged. And in the US, this costs the economy between 450 and 550 billion a year. So it is a major problem. And when I talk to leaders about this, I tell them it's your job as the leader to engage the team. That's one of our key responsibilities. And then people tell me, yeah, but you don't understand. My team are lazy. They're not that interested. They're not very motivated. Well, in my experience, I don't find that. What I find is that people are not afraid of hard work. What they're afraid of is failure. And if you think you're going to fail, why would you engage in an initiative that is going to fail? And IBM did some research, and on 75% of initiatives that failed, people knew day one it was going to fail. And that becomes a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. So as leaders, in order to engage our teams, what we need to do is show them that we're not going to fail and that we are going to be successful. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to share with you my FAST approach, which is an approach that I've learned, developed from over 30 years as working as a turnaround expert, recovering underperforming departments and failing projects. And when you look at what causes to fail, there are only 4 key reasons. And these are a lack of focus, a lack of accountability, a lack of simplicity, because we have a tendency to overcomplicate things, and then a lack of transparency. And these are the 4 things that make up my FAST approach: focus, accountability, simplicity, and transparency. And if we can do a better job in each of those, it's going to allow us to not only fail, but it will actually accelerate the pace at which we will succeed and also the scale of that success. So I want to go through these quite quickly. We are going to share my book FAST. Will it be on the website, or how will we do that? We will share. We'll find a way to share it so that you can get more detail out of it. Because in 16 minutes, it's difficult to go through all that in a lot of detail. So the first part of FAST is focus. And what is focus? Focus is about the what. What's our goal? What's our objective? Do we know what success looks like? And on the majority of projects that I get involved in turning around, I often find that they are not focused on the right things. And when you're focused on the wrong thing, it does not matter how good a job you do, you cannot succeed. Has anybody heard about the 150 million euro French train failure? Anybody? There was a 15 billion program that the French went through to upgrade their trains. First 2,000 new trains are going to be delivered. First 351 trains are delivered ahead of schedule and under budget. Just one tiny problem with them. Anybody know what that was? Anybody? Okay, well, I'll tell you. The problem was that these trains were too wide to pass through 1,800 of 2,300 stations in France. The trains were too wide to pass through 1,800 out of 2,300 stations. And the problem with that is that they did a fantastic job. These trains were very well built, very comfortable, under budget, delivered ahead of schedule, but when it doesn't fit for purpose, then this is a failure. So we need to make sure that we're focused on the right things. And some of the reasons we lose focus is because quite often we work in a very competitive environment and we're told just dive in, do it now, get started, don't think about it too much, just go for it. But when we do that, if we go too quickly and we don't fully understand what success looks like, it's not clearly defined, then we can find ourselves focused on the wrong thing. And when you focus on the wrong thing, doesn't matter how good a job you're going to do, you're going to fail. Einstein says if he had an hour to save the world, he'd spend 55 minutes understanding the problem and 5 minutes solving it. We get an hour to understand the problem, we spend a minute trying to understand it, and then we're told 59 minutes, get in and do it. And when we do that, we can end up being focused on the wrong thing, and that can cause a problem. And as leaders of teams, we need to make sure that we take that step back and make sure that our teams are focused on the right thing. Another reason why we fail is because we have too many priorities. And when everything's a priority, nothing becomes a priority. My last boss, when I was working for Henkel, told me, these are your 6 number 1 priorities, Gordon. This is not going to work because when time becomes critical, I'm only going to be able to focus on one thing. And if I pick the wrong thing, again, it doesn't matter how good a job I do, I'm going to fail. And in a lot of businesses, we tell people, you need to innovate, we need to be focused on doing this, but you also need to be focused on serving your customers and delivering the service that we're offering. And if those two things can't be done, they have to pick one or the other. And if you want to innovate, we can then lose the quality of service, which can cause a problem, or they don't have the time to innovate, and now we're not making the progress that we want to on that. So here are 3 things that we can do to increase our focus. We can create clearly defined goals and objectives. We have got to be able to describe what success looks like. We have to understand it meticulously. We need to keep our goals to a minimum. Ideally, no more than 3. Again, when I worked for Henkel, we had 3 goals for the entire company. These are big goals, admittedly, but if you have too many big goals, they'll break down into sub-goals. Now you're focused on 20, 30 goals, and when you focus on everything, you're focused on nothing. And then lastly, we need to make sure that we communicate the goals and objectives to our team so they understand what's important. They know what success looks like. So if they have to make a decision, they're making an informed decision and try and get us to focus on the right things. And when we're focused on the right things, the effort that we put in is going to get converted into results, and that's going to motivate people as they start to see the progress that they're making. Second part of FAST is about accountability. Accountability is about the who. Who's involved? Have we got clear roles and responsibilities? Have we told them what we expect from them? Do we know how we are going to hold them accountable? Because we've got to hold people accountable. If we don't hold them accountable, we're not going to see the results and improvements that we're looking for. And a lot of time, people don't want to do that because they feel it's confrontational. But if you don't follow up, what you're really saying is it's not that important. So we've got to follow up, we've got to hold people accountable. And the best way I found to do this is to do it from a position of support. So when we have the review meetings, it's about how well is it going, what can I do to help you if you're having a problem, or good job, well done. And if we take that approach, then people will start to accept and adopt accountability. But if we are too aggressive and we get into create a culture of blame or start to blame people, blame kills innovation. It also disempowers us. When we blame, we give away responsibility. We put somebody else in charge of making that solution happen. Lufthansa, they had a problem with on-time arrival, and the CEO decided he was going to fix it. And who did he blame for their late arrival? Anybody know? The weather. That's a great answer. If I ask questions, usually a sensible answer is the wrong answer. They sent a letter to all of their customers saying, please turn up on time. You're delaying our aeroplanes. When you blame the customers, it's not going to get fixed. We have to take ownership, because when we take ownership, then we can start to take action and move things forward. So accountability, 3 things that we can do. We can have clear roles and responsibilities and also set expectations. We need to hold people accountable for outcomes, not just following process. If you want people to innovate, let them determine how they're going to achieve the result. If you tell them, here's a process you're going to follow, you're actually stifling and killing innovation. And then lastly, we need to be accountable ourselves. If we're not accountable, accountability is not going to happen. Leadership defines culture. I remember my mother telling my two sisters, don't smoke, it's really bad for you. That's not going to work. We have to be accountable. Third part of FAST is simplicity. We have a natural tendency to overcomplicate things. And simplicity is about the how. Do I know how we're going to be successful? Have I kept it as simple as possible? Have I communicated it as simply as possible? Because when we do that and our teams can see and understand how they're going to be successful, then they'll get involved and start to move towards it. And if we can't understand, it can actually cause us to disengage and not even try certain things. I remember when I was 17, my dad's boss wanted to go to Munich for a vacation. And this was back in the 70s. Can't send an email, can't send a text, can't book online. He's got to make a phone call or use 2 postal services, and that's even more complicated. But he was worried because although he spoke some German, he didn't feel he spoke enough to do it. And my dad said, well, Gordon's learning German at school. Let's bring him in. So they brought me in, and my dad's boss asked me, can you ask them, can you book this for the first 2 weeks of August? And is there anything we need to do in order to make the booking more successful? And I said, yeah, of course I can do that. And they dialed the number rung, gave me the phone. The lady said, Guten Tag, and I said, Sprechen Sie English? And when she said, yeah, I said, could I book the first 2 weeks in August, please? Now, his thinking that his German wasn't good enough actually stopped him from trying, even though he had all of the capability to do that. So we need to make sure that we communicate clearly and simply and keep things as simple as possible. So there are 3 tips for improving simplicity. We need to challenge our teams to create simple solutions. Difficult, complex solutions are easy to find. It's usually the first thing we'll find, and we need to just check and ask ourselves, is there something simpler or easier we could be doing? We need to challenge everything. I'm working on a project now, and I tell you, we're doing things that add 0 value to the customer or to us, but we're doing it because we've always done it that way. We need to look at these things and just rip them out, say we're not going to do them. That's how we innovate. We don't innovate by just keeping doing what we've always done. And then the third thing we need to do is we need to take what I call the Pareto approach to this. Don't try and improve your processes by 20%. Think about how could I do it for 20% of the effort? Because when you look to do it with 20% of the effort, that forces you to throw away the way you currently do it and open yourself to new ideas. If you just think about how can I improve by 20%, you'll stick with the existing way and you'll try and shave little bits off. But that is not going to deliver the innovation that you need. Last part of FAST is transparency, and transparency is about 2 things. It's about truth and knowledge. It's about the knowledge of what's involved. When you look at the statistics from Gartner, projects on average cost 3 times as much and take 3 times as long. And this is because we didn't know what was involved. And if we don't know what's involved, how can we communicate to our teams how they are going to be successful? And then it's about the truth of our performance. We have data everywhere. We should be able to get data feedback on what our true performance is. Because if we've got our true performance, we can, 1, use it to motivate our teams, and 2, if we're not on track, make the adjustments. But too often I see people not using data in that way. And if we don't use that, it's like we're running a race blindfolded. After 10 minutes, we don't know where we are, we don't know where the finishing line is, we don't know where our competition is, yet we still think we're gonna win. It's not going to happen. So 3 things we can do to increase our transparency. First one is we need to make sure that we do the due diligence. We've got to make sure that we understand what's involved. projects cost 3 times as much because we can see the third of the iceberg above the water, but it's the 2/3 underneath that kill us. So we need to make sure, we don't want to be finding work we don't need to do, but we need to make sure we fully understand, because when we fully understand, we can communicate to our teams. We're going to create that trust and belief that they will be successful, which will get them engaged and get them moving forward. Second thing we need to do is we need to create a plan of our progress. A lot of projects, they just look at plans and it's, did you do this task, did you do this task, did you do this task? But we want to be focused on outcomes, results. So where are you going to be after 10% of the time? Where are you going to be after 20% of the time? And we need these to be data-based, because if we're on track, we can give ourselves a pat on the back, we can celebrate. If we're not, we can ask ourselves, how do we change our approach and drive ourselves forward? And then the last thing we need to do is we need to share that progress. Because if our teams get engaged, sharing the progress is going to keep them engaged. A number of projects I've been involved in and things I've seen where people have plucked defeat from the jaws of victory. There's a statistic about sales that it's 90% of the sale happens after the 5th contact with a customer, and 90% of customers stop at the 4th contact. We need to have this transparency, we need to report it back so people can see, and we do not snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. So that's my fast approach. So I want you to go back and ask yourself, do I have the right focus? Do I know what my goal and objective is, and have I communicated it clearly? Am I accountable? Do I know who's involved, and have I communicated to them clearly their role and the expectation? Have we kept it simple? Do we know how we're going to be successful? And have we communicated that in a simple and clear way so that people can see how we'll be successful, and that's going to drive engagement? And then the last thing, do we have transparency? Do we know what's involved, and do we have an accurate way of reporting on it and sharing that feedback with our teams? And when you do that, not only will you reduce the amount of failures you have, you will actually drive success and increase the scale and volume of it. And that is my fast process. Thank you.